泣けますね。なんかあんなうるっとくると思う。危ない危ない。仕事柄セリフに引き込まれるところがあって、その一行一行が重いですよね。単純にゲームって思えない。切ない。
ゲームボーイアドバンスマザー3。
奇妙で面白い。そして切ない。ようこそマザー3の世界へ。マザー3。
There is one game we all play, and that game is called Real Life. Not everyone is good at it, but some of us are. Real Life is an open world game with endless possibilities. And after all, only the uncultured spend their day-to-day life in just one country. So join me in my life of leisure as I explore the best games for the handheld around the world. Eight months ago, I started a YouTube channel, and the first game I reviewed was Earthbound. I must admit, I did partly make the decision to start with Earthbound because I own a complete copy and wanted to make you all jealous and show you all how great I am. But I also decided to start with Earthbound as it is simply such a great game and now has a cult-like status. 8 months and 2,300 subscribers later, it's time for me to revisit the Mother series, this time looking at the sequel, Mother 3. Mother 3 is undisputedly the most well-known game ever to have never received a Western release. Despite the fact that this is a game we have never got in our hemisphere, Nintendo continue to wave their big fat Mother 3 penis in our faces by including the star of the game, Lucas, as a playable character within all the Smash Bros. Games. There has been petition after petition for over a decade to get this game released in the West, but to no avail. Nintendo have even started trolling the fans themselves over this. They even released a little video at a recent E3 by Robot Chicken poking fun at the Mother 3 fans. Personally, I think we will get this game released officially in some form eventually, as they have even bothered now to release the first Mother game in the West. If that is not pointing to an eventual release of the third instalment, I do not know what else is. But if I'm honest with you, I do not even know why anyone cares at this stage whether they bring out Mother 3 or not. I, for one, do not give a crap. If they do release it, the best we can hope for at this stage is emulation on the Virtual Console anyway. There has been petition after petition to see an official release of this game, where there's no real point anyway, as there's already a perfectly adequate fans translation available online. Are people just being pedantic or something when you could have something decent for free already? An official release is now completely redundant at this stage, if you ask me. Literally anyone can go online, download this game and give it a go. I, for example, even went on eBay and got an English translated version on an actual GBA cart. It's not like Nintendo are suddenly going to release it on the GB bloody A. They're just going to bring it out on the Virtual Console if anything, which is crappy emulation anyway. So, to all of you continuing to beg and grovel to Nintendo for an official release of Mother 3, I think all of you need to shut your goddamn hipster mouths up. Literally everything is already at your disposal to play this game for free. You just should all shut up and get on with your lives. Right, now I have finished talking about the annoying fan base of the game, let's talk about why the game has earned such a vocal fan base in the first place. Let's talk about the game itself. Yeah. Mother 3 is a gaming experience different from anything else I've ever played before. The word mother plays a far bigger role in this game than in any of the game's prequels. This classic style turn-based JRPG treads, I think, where no game trod previously, and is an exploration about the loss of a mother and how that one small act can topple the lives of all those connected, like a series of dominoes. Loss is something as human beings in which most of us can relate to. However, since this is a very dark subject and games are usually there for escapism and light fun, one would assume that these subjects do not mix very well. However, Mother 3 breaks that mould and somehow manages to include these subjects that deviate from the norm within a game. The story of Mother 3 takes place an unknown amount of years after the events of the second entry in the series, Earthbound. The story is split into 8 chapters, including a prologue. The game begins when a group called the Pigmask Army starts a forest fire and invade an area called Tazmily Village, a small town on the Nowhere Islands. A man named Flint ventures out into the fire to protect his friends and family. He has 2 sons named Lucas and Klaus, and a wife named Hinawa. After some exploration in the game, Hinawa is found dead. Because of this, Flint lashes out and is imprisoned, and Klaus sneaks Flint a tool to escape before disappearing. Klaus then ventures into the wild to kill the T-Rex-like creatures he feels is responsible for killing his mother, and then he too disappears. Flint then, with the loss of his wife and son, spends his days in the wild looking for his missing son, and the remaining son Lucas grows up shy and alone. Wow, this is really dark, depressing stuff for a first-party Nintendo game, isn't it? The game is quite literally built around the concept of the loss of a mother. The game works hard to play on those emotions. The entire first few hours of gameplay is a tragic tale in its own right, in which it shows the death of a mother, the disappearance of a son, and the resulting fallout through the husband and father's unique point of view. And then, even after we skip a few years forward in the story, we then see how the loss of a wife and son has destroyed this man's life entirely, leaving him unable to care properly for his remaining son. Maybe Genesis does in fact do what Nintendo don't, and that is not to press you to buggery like this game and make you want to slit your wrists. Thanks, Nintendo!
恐竜が死んじゃって子供が泣いて「いやー」とかってやってるとか悪役がいて。
ゲームボーイアドバンスマザー3。
Yeah, Mother 3 just came out in Japan, and it's actually sold pretty well over there. There's a lot of enthusiasm for the game because the Japanese have always been big fans of the Mother series ever since the NES days, and it has its following here in the States too. For instance, the people at Starman.net, the premier Earthbound fan site, have put together this book. This was actually a couple of years ago when Earthbound and its prequel were published on Game Boy Advance in Japan. And I believe that they put this together for EGM and several other magazines and sent out this huge book of fan art and music, and I don't know, it's like fan fiction and comics. It's kind of an impressive effort, and I think the idea was that they'd send it to magazines, and the magazines would be so impressed by their loyalty that they would encourage Nintendo to publish the game in the U.S., which actually didn't happen. But
as you can see,
it is nice that there's this community out there. And I know Nintendo is aware of it. The question is whether or not they think that anyone outside of that group would actually buy Earthbound 2 Mother 3 if they brought it to the US.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Earthbound was probably like my number 2 favorite Super Nintendo game, honestly, but it's like I never really got into it as much as, the people I've seen elsewhere on the internet. It's just like...
I think you have to have a certain degree of bloodlust. So how far have you played into Mother 3 so far, Ray?
Oh gosh, only about a couple hours really.
So you haven't made it to where the monkey fights the dung beetles?
No, unfortunately, not
See.
into the monkey yet.
That's where I'm right now, and it's
Yeah.
it's kind of inspiring.
Yeah, I know monkeys are a key part of the Earthbound series, I think. So.
Yeah, I think so, and probably dung beetles too.
Yeah.
I think the best part of Mother 3 is the battle system, which I wasn't really expecting much from because, you know, Mother and Earthbound were both just like
Yeah.
Dragon Warrior,
Yeah.
and it wasn't anything exciting. It had the rolling counters, but that was about it. But the music element in the battle system really it adds an extra, I don't know, an element of interactivity.
Yeah, it's still not perfect though. I mean, it's still like there's not enough of a guide for you really. Like there could be like a little line or something like a rhythm.
Well, actually, one of the characters that you may not have gotten to, he has a special ability to let you change the sound of the music so that it amplifies the beat and drops the harmony back, so or the melody. So it's really easy that you can just listen to the rhythm. But I also find that if you just like bop your head like a retard, then
Yeah.
it works really well. So yeah, so here I'm in a battle, so I'll just kind of demonstrate. Okay, so that was
Yeah,
11 hits. So
I
it was
think I'm
kind
a
of
little bit-
worth looking like an idiot,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, well, I'd say what really makes Mother different than anything is just story. Really, is that it's so different and yet it's so more involved than anything else. Because you know they have like the modern day aspects from the first. I mean, from the first couple ones, and that was really like such a huge change from at the time.
You know, it was pretty much set in a slightly skewed version of the modern world, kind of a Japanese impression of what America is like.
Yeah.
So it kind of was a surreal fantasy in that way.
And the stories dealt so much with the youth, you know, and just like growing up in a way. And now it's like in Mother 3, you know, you have adults and youth as, you know, the characters, and so they're going through their own dramas now.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. The story for Mother 3 kind of surprised me because it's a lot more of a traditional RPG story in that it's kind of linear, it's kind of chapter-based, there are more adults. But my understanding is that later in the game, ultimately the kids are the main characters.
I was really impressed with the animation, honestly. The animation's pretty good compared to like the older games, because now it's like they used to look just like, you know, regular 16-bit RPGs, and now they look more like a 32-bit
Yeah,
RPG.
I think that's something you can't really tell from just plain screenshots. Is
Yeah.
that despite the simple, almost 8-bit look of the graphics, it's really well animated, and I think that's Brownie Brown, the developer of the game. They did Sword of Mana and Magical Vacation and a few other really nice looking GBA games, and they have a real knack for animation with sprites. And when you see Earthbound in motion, especially on like a DS Lite where the colors are just super vivid and beautiful, it's a really great looking game, and the music is really good too, especially considering it's, you know, a GBA game. The music style is different. There's more of a driving beat to the music than in the previous games because, you know, it has to have the beat element to it. Although actually some of the trickier battles that you get into have music with no clear beat, so that it's really hard to tell what the timing is on those. And I think that's actually part of the challenge for those battles.
It's too bad, because I was getting thrown off early on already. So.
Nintendo hasn't actually announced it for the US yet, but they haven't really released news of their GBA lineup for this year. And I know that Nintendo's most recent acquisition on the localization side is a big Earthbound fan, so I can only imagine that he's, you know, stumping for it back at Nintendo headquarters in the treehouse. I think if Mother 3 is not at Nintendo's E3 booth, I will be very shocked. I can't imagine it not coming to the US. You don't want to mess with the Starman.net people. They're a posse.
Yes?
E3's in 2 weeks.
Any plans to bring Mother 3 to America?
Oh,
Yes.
everybody asking that.
Yes.
Did you know? Mother 3 was conceived during a stressful period before Earthbound's launch.
Series creator Shigesato Itoi believed that most RPGs were structured like road trip movies, and wanted to switch up the formula and set a game in a single town that changes over time. Itoi's first idea for a protagonist was a detective who'd solve crimes while living above a supermarket. The character would attempt to solve a murder, but could only progress by building relationships with the townspeople. Because of this, Itoi prized minor details. For example, a woman hanging out washing would be seen wearing clean clothes the next day. Shigeru Miyamoto compared the concept to that of Majora's Mask, which used a similar mechanic. Satoru Owada, producer of the Mother 3 project, hinted that Itoi's pitch may have influenced Animal Crossing, which he described as the realization of Itoi's idea. Mother 3 was originally planned for the Super Nintendo but soon changed course, becoming a 3D Nintendo 64 disk drive game. Several screenshots from this time featured a playable character who looked like Ness, the protagonist of Earthbound, suggesting the game was to have stronger ties with the rest of the Mother series. The rewritable nature of the 64DD software led Miyamoto to consider letting players transfer their art from the Japan-only Mario artist into Mother 3. Itoi immediately shot this idea down, as he didn't want to include features just to show off the console's capabilities. After the commercial failure of the 64DD, the game changed course again, aiming for release on the Nintendo 64. Due to the Earthbound team's inexperience with 3D technology, a brand new team was brought in to develop Mother 3. But this team was unfamiliar with the series, and Owada would often have to give them advice on how to construct gameplay scenarios. Things were made even more difficult by Owada's absence during development, as he had other commitments in America and Kyoto. The scope of the game was also too large for the team due to the complex interplay between the world and the characters. Some elements were unfeasible with the Nintendo 64's hardware, but the team stubbornly pursued them, inspired by Owada's words of encouragement. Never say a programmer can't do something. After 3 console changes and 6 years in development, Mother 3 was cancelled in August of 2000. In an interview with Itoi, Miyamoto and Owada estimated the game was anywhere between 30 to 60% complete when it was cancelled. It was in this same interview that Itoi mentioned the possibility of restarting the project on the Game Boy Advance. Producers discouraged him, saying it would be just as much work to make a GBA game as an N64 game. Nevertheless, the project was restarted in 2003 for the Game Boy Advance. A compilation game called Mother 1+2 was also released as a refresher for the franchise, and a commercial for the game ended with the message confirming Mother 3 was back in development. Itoi did not regret downsizing the game. He felt the final product reflected his vision and was happy they didn't go with the 3D look, as pixel art went hand in hand with the series. Wood and metal were meshed together in Mother 3's logo to reflect the game's themes of inclusiveness. Another reason was to create an uneasy juxtaposition between the natural world and the modern world, a key theme in the game. It would also reflect the game's chimera enemies, which are separate creatures combined into one. Itoi compared these creatures to Sid's toys in Toy Story, who were spliced together from different parts. In fact, while the game was in development for the 64DD, Itoi considered using Chimera Forest as a subtitle. This was not used in the final release, as the team didn't want to influence how players imagined the world before they played the game. The Magypsy character was created in response to what Itoi referred to as the more macho story in Mother 3, which is focused on conflict. The Magypsies, who find themselves in the middle of the conflict, are androgynous and have accepted that they will eventually die. By blending masculine and feminine traits and a refusal of power, the Magypsies balance out the more masculine nature of the story. The Magypsies fit perfectly with Itoi's perception of Mother as a more feminine RPG franchise. When one of the Magypsies begins to disappear, they say a phrase which roughly translates to, "I'm disappearing for a bit. I'm okay though." This is a reference to the official slogan Itoi wrote for the 1989 film Kiki's Delivery Service, which roughly translates to, "I was depressed for a while. I'm okay now." The team joked that they would have refused the reference were it not written by Itoi himself. The character Duster also has interesting inspirations and was given a limp because of the game's theme of inclusivity. Itoi reasoned that handicapped people should be as much a part of the world of Mother 3 as they are a part of ours. In Mother 3, the player saves by talking to save frogs, in contrast with past games in the series where players called their father. This was a decision made with some hesitance, as the team were worried that fans wouldn't like the change. Frogs were specifically chosen because of their peculiar nature. Itoi thought that an animal like a dog wouldn't stand out enough to seem important. The decision was also influenced by the song Furimakeba Kaeru, which translates roughly to, "If you turn around, frog." The song was written by Itoi and performed by the Japanese pop singer Akiko Yano. The lyrics portray an optimistic frog who, in spite of its own trivial nature, encourages people not to be dejected by their failure. In a similar vein, the game's save frogs are seen after the player dies. There's an incognito Mr. Saturn in the game who, after bidding the player farewell, is revealed to have walked just slightly off screen. This was originally just a bug, but was kept in the game as the toy found it funny. The area Tane Tane Island was also inspired by American TV series like Lost and Twin Peaks. However, these areas had to be toned down because the toy was made so uneasy by his initial draft.
あんなうるっとくると思わなかった。危ない危ない。あ、どうしよう。
ゲームボーイアドバンスマザー3
Mother 3's development started before the second game was finished, in the early 1990s. It started very suddenly with an idea hitting Itoi like a brick on one sleepless night. He rushed to the phone then and there in order to tell his game designer all about it. The concept came from Mother 2, and I wanted to hurry and start on 3. First I wanted to turn a hard-boiled detective novel into a video game. That led me to another idea, and putting 2 and 2 together made Mother 3. Itoi tackled Mother 3 as a passion project, and set out to make the game with very deep, intricate themes from the very beginning. He had many things to say about inclusion, love, and identity, and poured it all into the project. Mother 3 would be exquisite. At least it would have been if things didn't start going a bit off the rails. Mother 3 was meant to be released for the Super Nintendo, like Mother 2. However, Nintendo was already looking to build upon the next generation, and development swiftly moved to the Nintendo 64. Mother 3 was then renamed Earthbound 64 in the West, and it was meant to be released the same year as the console, but Itoi was a little overeager with the project. First, the team decided to change the system again, this time the Nintendo 64 DD, a disc-based add-on to the Nintendo 64. It had an internal clock and writable nature, and the team could use that to make game mechanics more immersive, and characters more responsive in their dialogue. It seemed like a perfect fit. That said, if you're unfamiliar with the add-on, there's a good reason for that. The 64 DD wasn't popular enough to get a retail release outside of Japan, and that should tell you all about how well the change went for the game. Earthbound 64 was also very ambitious, but their ambition came at the expense of a release plan. When the Nintendo 64 was released in 1996, the game was nowhere to be seen. When Itoi was asked in an interview about how much of the game was finished, he said that if he were to give a date, he would just be lying. In an interview with the 64 Dream, this is what he said. The supporting scripts haven't been written yet, but all the scenarios are done. The map is done, and all that's left is bringing the characters to life in it. So here on out are just details. But in games, details are everything. As long as those steps aren't cleared, there's no difference between a completion rate of 60% or 20%. Despite the back and forth between systems, things still seem to be moving forward. At Nintendo's Space World event in 1997, they finally showed off the first footage of Earthbound 64 after a long 5-year wait. This footage you're seeing on screen right now was only unearthed back in 2021 and demonstrates how significant its development was at a time when games like Final Fantasy VII were all the rage, and an exclusive on Nintendo's rival platform, the Sony PlayStation. Disc technology was the new hot trend in the industry of the 90s, and all of Nintendo's rivals had gone in on it. The 64 DD was meant to allow the Nintendo 64 to make use of disc technology as well, so it was hyped up as the future of the console, and Earthbound 64 was meant to be its flagship title. Except there was less and less news about the add-on and about Earthbound 64. There were so few developments that Nintendo skipped its own event in 1998 because they had almost nothing to show for the 64 DD. And would you look at that, Earthbound 64 still had no release date. The year after 1999 finally gave fans something new about the Nintendo 64's first big RPG. Quest 64 doesn't count, at Nintendo's Space World event, now 3 years into the console's lifespan. The public got to see some more Earthbound 64 footage, along with a full trailer and a demo, and it really fired up the audience. Reception was generally positive, fans were excited, the time was right, the fans were ready for Earthbound 64. Except, and this is going to shock you, so hold on, there was still no release date. Itoi and the rest of the team would often say that development was going smoothly, but there was almost nothing to show for it. Nintendo even added another producer to the project in order to maybe finally get the game out. But of course, development continued to be a mess of delays and changes. In fact, Earthbound 64 changed target hardware for the 4th time, going back to being developed as a standard Nintendo 64 cartridge game when the 64DD was proving not to be the system's future. And so it went. From winter 1999 to Christmas 2000, deadlines were given and not met. Mother 3 was deep into development hell, and it had now been 8 years since the project first started. Fans and media outlets were growing skeptical. Something wasn't right. The next piece of real news would come in August of 2000. The Nintendo 64 DD had a lackluster launch in Japan, and the Mother team had been silent for quite a while. Until the bombshell dropped. On August 22nd, 2000, Shigetsu Itoi released a statement on his own personal blog. After 8 years of expectations and delays, Mother 3 had been cancelled.
Mother 3 is a Japan-only game. If you were to only know one thing about this game before having clicked on this video, it was probably that fact. But instead of creating yet another video for the internet shouting into the abyss on how much people want an official Mother 3 English release, I think it'd be far more interesting to delve into the history of the Mother 3 fan translation. The fan translation was a project to make Mother 3 accessible for English speakers by translating the original Japanese text of the game all into English. But how did it all come to be, and what is the legacy of this project now? All this and more in today's video. I think a little background is needed before I delve into the meat of this video, so let me explain what a fan translation means. Fan translating is when a piece of media, say a cartoon, song, video game, etc., that is unavailable in one language, is taken by a fan and translated into a different language, without the endorsement of monetary backing of the original IP holder. Most of the time, fan translations are made when an official translation isn't available, but can also oftentimes be made when an official translation is deemed to be too different from the original text's intent. It is essentially the duty of the translator to keep the original intent of the author's writing. Typically, the most common form of fan translating is taking Japanese media and translating it into English, but seeing as the internet isn't made up of 100% English speakers, other language translations are also very common, such as translating stuff into Spanish, French, Korean, and more. With TV shows or comics, fan translating can be relatively simple, as all you usually need is the skill to edit images or add subtitles. But when it comes to video games, there of course is an added layer of having to hack a game to make the text in a different language be displayed with no issues. While many video games can still largely be enjoyed without knowing Japanese, it's always nice to have context as to what's being said in the game, and in particular with role-playing games, being able to understand character dialogue and menus is pretty much essential, meaning fan translation of that genre are all the more lauded. Now that you know what fan translating is, I don't think I have to give any introduction as to what Mother 3 is, but I'll do it anyway. Mother 3 is the third game in the Mother series, officially known as the Earthbound series in the West. The game went through quite possibly some of the worst development hell seen by any video game, and had to go through several redesigns due to changing hardware the project was being developed for, culminating in an April 2006 release in Japan. Earthbound, known as Mother 2 in Japan, had seen a North American release, and seeing as during the game's N64 days, Mother 3 was planned to have an official localization under the name Earthbound 64 or Earthbound 3, people reasonably assumed that this would mean the GBA version that had finally actually released would also see an English translation. And no, it obviously did not. And this is where I can now get into the Mother 3 fan translation. The story of trial and error, of hope and patience, and it's one I think deserves a chronicling like this because it's pretty damn interesting. Anyways... So, Mother 3 releases in Japan, and the forum for the Earthbound fan site, starmen.net, has a huge interest in discussing the game, of course, but the question inevitably arises, will there be an American release? Or even a European one? Will Nintendo translate this game into English? Fans waited for some time, hoping against hope to see this text-heavy RPG maybe get the chance to be localized, despite the Game Boy Advance now being on its way out as the months went on, with no announcements in sight. And by November 8th, 2006, something would happen. Reedman, one of the original Starman.net alumni, made a blog post that would change everything for English-speaking Mother fans. A lot was said in this post, detailing the past 10 plus years of trying to get Nintendo America to acknowledge the Earthbound series, all for it to be in vain, and the final nail in the coffin towards hope of seeing that coveted official Mother 3 translation. And so, an announcement was made. Clyde Tomato Mandolin, a professional translator and hardcore Mother fan, would be translating the game, with a team who would join to ROM hack the game and polish it to make it the best fan translation they could all make. Overwhelming positivity from fellow English Mother fans followed this news. Mother 3 may not have been getting official acknowledgement from Nintendo of America, but this was the next best thing. Fears arose, however, that Nintendo of America might want to take down this fan translation, but there was a long road still ahead. No one at this point even knew quite how long it'd take to translate this game. Shortly after the initial reveal announcement, a few people who had previously begun working on translating Mother 3 separately joined the team to help out with the project. Not long after that, a new site was formed to host updates about the translation. There was a lot of work moving forward, and this is where Earthbound fans could see how progress was going. Now, just to clarify, I'm not going to recount every single blog post word for word. I just want to give a timeline of how progress was made and any other interesting events and tidbits that occurred during.
Hello Reggie, I'm honored to be in your presence. Pardon me for asking this question, as I know it appears in your nightmares, but do you think that the West will ever be able to receive Mother 3?
I actually thought I would make it through a presentation. Not being asked about Mother 3. Come on, you know, it's my fault. All of my answers are out there. I mean, look, I love Earthbound, but luckily for me, this is a decision that I'm no longer part of.
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3!
How about this instead?
なんか結構ひどいこと起きるじゃないですか。人死んだりとか、主人公が泥棒になったりとか。私ウエスの踊りが好きだった。こうやってお尻振って。
ゲームボーイアドバンスマザー3
As a lawyer, I am completely convinced that we will never see an official Western localization of Mother 3. I'm aware that many articles have theorized as to why we haven't seen a localization yet, and that we've had various non-answers regarding this topic from developers and insiders alike. And yet, after I've not only played Mother 3, but loved it deeply, it is painfully clear to me why Mother 3 is never going to be released in the West, at least not without a massive host of changes. And the reason is this. Mother 3 is packed full of intellectual property infringement, from top to bottom, in places you wouldn't even expect to find it. And removing the IP infringement would change the game quite substantially, impacting everything from story beats to graphics to music, in ways that the original Earthbound or Mother 2 doesn't, while also being too expensive to change, according to Nintendo's own calculations. I've seen a few takes that get close to the real root of the issue. Imran Khan, a highly regarded former editor at Game Informer, wrote that Mother 3, as far as I know, is a dead end. It was full steam ahead for a while, but upon re-evaluation there were aspects of the game that weren't going to go without controversy. Reginald Fils-Aimé, the former president of Nintendo of America, was once asked by Bloomberg whether Mother 3 wasn't ported to the West because it was too controversial. Fils-Aimé responded, "That is not the issue why Mother 3 in particular never made it to the West. It was all based on the business needs and business situation at the time." Reggie says as much in his book. It's all a business situation. We need to read around the text though, and understand the roundabout nature of corporate jargon. What is the business situation here exactly? And what are these controversies? There's a whole lot to unpack here, so let's take a deep dive into Mother 3, US intellectual property law, and business philosophy to understand why we will likely never see an official localization of Mother 3, as we know it.
Hello and welcome to Region Locked. We've covered numerous RPGs on Region Locked. Often, these games remain in Japan because they're a brand new IP that perhaps hasn't garnered the audience, or possibly the translation effort alone would be too much of an undertaking to bring it westward. However, in this video, we're covering the sequel to the now beloved cult classic RPG, Earthbound. Finally, we're talking about Mother 3. Developed by Nintendo subsidiaries HAL Labs and Brownie Brown, now known as 1UP Studios, Mother 3 released for the Game Boy Advance on April 20th, 2006. Mother 3 takes place sometime after the events of Earthbound. The game's story spans multiple characters, each with their own plot, and a variety of them joining the party only temporarily. The main focus of the title is Lucas, beginning when he is just a young child in Tazmily, a small village located in the Nowhere Islands, which doesn't have any form of currency. The villagers are all happy and work together to provide for one another. Twins Lucas and Klaus go with their mother, Hinawa, to visit her father in the mountains outside of the village. While there, the boys spend their time playing with the wildlife, Dragos, small dinosaur-like creatures. It doesn't take long for aliens wearing pig masks to appear and begin throwing explosives and setting fires in the forest. The boy's father, Flint, helps to protect the village and its inhabitants. Rain extinguishes the fire, and it's at this point that Flint finds out that his family are yet to return from the mountains. Flint sets out to find his wife and children, and the villagers split up, working together to find them. In the mountains, Flint comes across pigmen, creating bizarre creatures, amalgamations of both organic and robotic material. He finds their notebook, revealing that they think animals suck, and that they want to make them tougher and rougher. Flint then finds his children have been discovered by the villagers, who are keeping them warm by a fire after they fell into the river and had been washed ashore. After a short rest, a villager runs to Flint, informing him that his wife has passed away. She had been found with a Drago fang having pierced her heart. Flint, distraught and unable to contain his rage, grabs a log from out of the fire pit. Lashing out in front of his children, frightening them and the villagers, he attacks several citizens of Tazmily before being knocked unconscious. When Flint awakens, he finds himself in prison for his violent crimes, being the first person to ever be sent to the prison in Tazmily village. After Klaus breaks him out with a nail file hidden inside an apple, he sets out to find his wife's grave. There, he finds an emotional Lucas, who reveals that Klaus has gone to seek revenge against the Drago. On his journey to find Klaus, Flint meets the Magypsies, a collection of people who have been hidden from the world for a long time. They are neither human nor animal, man nor woman, capable of gifting people with psychic powers. They reveal that they have assisted Klaus, providing him with a powerful psionic attack, and have set him on his way. Flint finds the Drago that killed his wife, and after a fierce battle with the creature, he refrains from killing it for the sake of its child. Flint, however, did not end up finding Klaus. These events set the adventure in motion, not with a triumphant victory, but rather a tragedy of anger and death. The game follows the same gameplay as Earthbound for the most part, with the addition of hot springs throughout the world to recover health, and saving being facilitated by speaking with frogs. A new feature of Mother 3 over earlier releases in the series is the inclusion of being able to perform combos during combat. When performing a standard melee attack, the player can attack an enemy multiple times by pressing the A button in time with the rhythm of a battle's background music, which differs between enemies. The player is able to attack up to a total of 16 times through this system, and if they are unable to determine the music's beat, they can put an enemy to sleep to make the beat more distinct over the melody. Series creator Shigesato Itoi had plans for a third entry in the Mother series as early as 1992, something he recalled in an interview with Famitsu that year. "I thought of it in the middle of the night. It was enough to make me rush and call my friend about it. Plus there's sort of a hint to it in Mother 2. I can't name any specifics because it's about the next game, but we're doing a CD-ROM for the Super Famicom." The sequel to Earthbound was first announced to the public in 1996, with the project being developed for the Nintendo 64. It did not take long for work to shift from the Nintendo 64 to the disk drive expansion, the Nintendo 64 DD. It was expected for the game to launch alongside the DD, but because of the team's lack of experience working with 3D and the new hardware, the title was continually delayed. 4 years after being announced, the game was cancelled in August of 2000. Satoru Iwata claimed the game was 30% done, while Shigeru Miyamoto said that it was about 60% finished, but neither wanted to release the game without it being 100% completed. The game was a huge undertaking for the N64 DD. In a discussion with Itoi, Miyamoto, and Iwata, the group divulged their extensive plans for the game. It's an RPG with 12 chapters, so each person has a different playing experience, something I'd never do now. But at the time, my ambitions were really out there, so I had ideas for how to run each chapter. I'd have one chapter work as a normal RPG, another chapter of just cutscenes, and another one with a game that had overlapping timelines, having 3 of the chapters made completely of still images and text to act as transitions. More information was slowly released as the game was being produced. It was planned to have more than 10 playable characters, each used for different chapters, with some main characters returning in other chapters as side characters for the party. The game was hoping to achieve a unique playing experience for each player. For example, a character could plant a seed in an earlier chapter and then find it has grown into a tree in a later one, helping them reach the top of the cliff, whereas another player might find an alternate path. A player might drop some food from their inventory in a certain location, which would then later attract enemies. The game was hoping to use the 64DD's internal clock, having night and day reflect what was happening in real time. A demo of the game was showcased at the Nintendo-sponsored Space World 1999 event, under the name Mother 3: The End of the Pig King. It contained playable sections in which the player took control of Flint, such as navigating a desert canyon, engaging in classic turn-based battles, riding a pork bean, exploring a snake-filled dungeon, and a town in which the player can interact with townsfolk. Several cutscenes were also shown, including footage of a band playing a song, Boney the dog running through rain, a character riding a dragon next to a bullet train, and a minecart scene with Lucas and Klaus speeding through caves and dungeons. IGN claimed this scene was clearly the visually most impressive sequence. Iwata blamed himself for the first cancellation of Mother 3. He said he wasn't available through much of Mother 3's production and spent a total of 3 months going back and forth to America. Both Miyamoto and Iwata claimed that the start of production for Mother 3 was unusual due to a lack of the trial period normal games go through by prototyping a rough version. Believing that the team from Earthbound would just transfer across all of their knowledge from the previous game's development, they jumped straight into the project, requiring new staff to be brought in to work on the game that hadn't had experience from the previous title. With these extra people on board, HAL Laboratories had to produce more games to have the funds to pay their staff. In the same interview, Iwata said that when creating Earthbound, the team managed to break past any proposed limitations the SNES had. The same mentality was carried forward to the N64 when creating Mother 3. This meant the production got out of hand, and with Iwata not on site for a lot of the production, when he returned, he spent 9 months going over what had already been produced, rather than progressing with development. Iwata was even hospitalized at one point from overwork and stress on the project. Different measures were taken to try and get the game released for Christmas 1999, including bringing on some of the staff that had worked on Pokémon Stadium. The team tried to get the game down from 12 chapters to just 7, but this still did not help. The date of release was moved to the following Christmas. However, by August 2000, the decision had to be made as to whether to sacrifice all of the other games that HAL had in the pipeline, or to simply just cancel Mother 3. Though it seemed like Mother 3 would never be completed, Miyamoto, on the day of cancellation, was already contemplating what format Mother 3 could take instead, such as being adapted into a film or book. He even proposed shifting development over to the Game Boy Advance, though this idea was shot down by several other producers. However, this idea came to fruition 3 years later in 2003, when brought back to life with the team going back to working with 2D graphics on the Game Boy Advance.
So, to mix interesting gaming theories and unused content together, I present to you Mother 3, a game with so many theories and cut content it warrants some dedicated discussion of its own. Specifically, amidst the droves of unused sprites, backgrounds, enemies, and battles, there exists something sinister, something that stands out from the rest. Mother 3 has one of the most disturbing pieces of cut content I've ever seen in a video game, and that is exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome to the rabbit hole of Lucas's nightmare. Warning, this video contains heavy spoilers for Mother 3. Please proceed at your own risk. Mother 3 has tons of unused content, all of which has been meticulously extracted through exploring the game's code. If you're familiar with the series at all, you may have seen articles over the years pointing to how the final battle was supposed to be way darker, but Itoi wanted to focus more on the friendship and love aspect of the game instead of the darker tone that Earthbound took. Well, by digging into Mother 3's code, there are more than a few tidbits that link to this. There are a plethora of cutscenes, sprites, and even a series of unused bosses that all support Itoi's wish for a darker ending. The unused boss and backgrounds of Mother 3 heavily incurred some massive amounts of speculation and theory ever since they surfaced on the internet. Although no one is entirely sure who first discovered these secrets, they can be found by doing a bit of digging into the game's code. In order to battle the unused battle backgrounds, in the cheat code menu of emulators such as Visual Boy Advance, 02004-7EC must be entered into the address bar, and one of its enemy modifier codes must be entered into the value bar. The codes must be put in with 8-bit size and the number format on hexadecimal, for those nerds out there that actually know what that means. There are 13 different enemy modifier combinations, ranging from the strange to the downright terrifying. After entering in this data, you have to encounter an enemy and trigger a battle, and you will see the following. Deemed by fans as Lucas's nightmare, these disturbing images make almost no sense on the surface. There is no doubt that some of these images are unnerving, but the mystery for their existence makes it all the more interesting. Let's break it down piece by piece.
主人公が変わるじゃないですか。あれが楽しいのと、無責任っぽいけど自由に生きている感じで、私お姫様が好き。やんちゃな。
ゲームボーイアドバンスマザー3。
Mother 3, the final game in the trilogy, the only game that is yet to officially release outside of Japan, the game that pretty much single-handedly convinced me to cover this series. Mother 3 is a lot of things, and I can sit here and tell you it's an amazing game and all that, and trust me, I'm gonna spend most of this video doing that very thing anyways. But let me take it a step further to give you a better sense of where I'm coming from. Xenoblade Chronicles is my all-time favorite game. Right below that, I haven't made up my mind if it's Final Fantasy VII Remake or Xenoblade Chronicles 3 because, gosh, that game had no right being as good as it turned out. But sitting at a comfortable third place is Mother 3. And at one point, it was actually at the very top of my list. Mother 3 may not have been the first RPG I played, heck, not even the second or third one, but it was the first time that a game ever made me feel so attached to its world and characters and made me laugh, smile, and grieve along with them. Mother 3 was the most mature game I had played up to that point in my life. The way it depicts family, coming of age, fear, sadness for a Game Boy Advance game no less. These moments stuck with me so much that when the credits rolled, my first thought was, I wish I can erase my memory just to be able to play this again for the first time. With that being said, this is probably a given, but Spoilers. Major spoilers to follow. If you haven't played Mother 3, do it. That's all I'm gonna say. Seek out the fan translation and just play it. Because at this rate, I have a better chance of being incinerated by Reggie than having my wish of an official Mother 3 localization come true. But I'll go into a bit more detail about that in a bit. If you're still here, then allow me to welcome you to my Mother 3 retrospective. And remember, no crying until the end. If you check this building in Foresight when playing Earthbound, you'll get a message that says planning meeting for Earthbound 2. Shigesato Itoi, apparently not knowing the concept of a good night's rest, was already working on the third Mother game as early as 1994. Much like that game, Mother 3 switched consoles in the middle of its development and was slated to launch on the Nintendo 64 instead of the Super Famicom. The team was excited to make the biggest and most ambitious Mother game yet, taking full advantage of the 64's hardware and inspiration from Mario's Leap into the Third Dimension to create a fully realized 3D world. But one issue quickly reared its ugly head. That's disgusting. Unlike Sega and Sony, whose consoles were CD-based, Nintendo stubbornly stuck with cartridges for the main Nintendo 64 unit, a format that could only fit 64 megabytes of data. I'm well aware of the saying size doesn't matter, but in this case, it did. And Nintendo knew this because they tried fixing it with another mistake. This is the Nintendo 64 disk drive, an add-on for the original console that used special disks in order to compensate for the memory limitations of cartridges. And how much data could these bad boys store?
You are so disappointing on so many levels.
So, the 64DD wasn't great, also grass is green, but the team worked with what they had and started developing Mother 3 exclusively for the add-on. The game was officially announced to be in production in 1997, and word made its way to the West as well, with screenshots and renders appearing in magazines and the game being unofficially dubbed Earthbound 64 outside of Japan. In 1999 at Space World, a fully playable build of the game was shown off with reports saying that the game was about halfway done. This is also where that famous trailer of the N64 version of Mother 3 originated from. And yeah, nowadays the visuals look pretty dated, but I find this absolutely fascinating. Recognizing characters and set pieces from the final game in a version that never saw the light of day is really cool. And the trailer is only made better by the amazing music, which also carried over into the final version. Despite the delays and the development team ultimately ditching the 64DD and going back to a regular cartridge to ship the game as, this trailer, the demo at Space World, and interviews with Itoi and even Miyamoto eased a lot of the public's worries about Earthbound 64's release, especially with all the marketing and confirmation of a May 2000 release in Japan. But sadly, I think we all know how this story ends.
マザー3はゲームボーイアドバンス、任天堂スイッチオンラインに本日追加。
僕ですか？
やったことがある人はそのマザー3をプレイした自分と対面することになると思うんですよ。あの時の自分はこんなこと感じてたんだなとか、それはすっごくいいことだと思うんですよね。で、こんなこと分かってなかった自分と今、あ、俺今こういうこと分かってるって思う、それが合うわけだから、無駄に俺生きてこなかったなって多分感じると思うんですよね。初めてやる人はその遊びってすげえなって思うと思う。ゲームって遊びですから、文字通りゲームですから、ゲームをやってるけどもこんな気持ちになれるのかとか、こんなこと考えるのかとか、作ったやつのことを想像したりとか、そういうことをやるっていうのはやっぱりなんだろう、ためになるからって言って博物館を巡ってる時以上にすごくこうあなたをこう豊かにしてくれると思うんで、ぜひ1億3000万人ぐらいの人にやってもらいたいなと思います。